Hello, welcome to the Audulus Livestream. Today I'm showing off a patch that I'm going to be showing to people at Knobcon. And this is an interesting type of wave shaping synthesizer. And it uses, basically it's got these couple sections here. And it's all of kind of a mess right now because I'm still building it. But I've got here a triangle and a sine. I have a square wave. I have a supersaw here. So this is two oscillators in here, but they save on CPU because they're using a phaser, and they're using just one phaser for both. And so this would be like a saw core VCO. That's what that's doing there. This is the square VCO that is, or oscillator that is the built-in one. And the reason I'm using the phaser for these ones and then the this for the square wave is because the square wave, excuse me, yeah, say that 5 times fast. Square wave is anti-aliased, and so it sounds a little better when you use this node. Same goes for the saw wave. If we go inside here, you can see all the saw waves in here. So all told, it's a relatively low CPU patch. I've got this reverb in here that's taking up about half the CPU, but if I didn't have the reverb, it'd be down near like 12%. And the reason it's so low is because I've actually got next to this data oscilloscope here. I'll loosen it up so you can see. I've got an Expert Sleepers ES8, and that's sending the audio and CV in and out. And I'm using this Dope4 filter. It's an SEM modeled filter, or a clone filter. And then this is a tube VCA right here. And so this is distorting the sound a little bit before it goes to the filter. I'm going to have a slightly different configuration when I bring it up to Knobcon. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have the VCA, right now the VCA is just acting as a distortion, but I'm going to have like a true kind of analog synthesizer signal flow where you go from the VCF to the VCA, and I use an envelope created in Audulus to open and close the filters in the VCA, the filter in the VCA. And then I'm also going to have two other filters, both a high pass and a low pass, to create a special analog modeling delay. So you've seen it in other videos that I posted in the past. I used the Mankato filter. This time I'm going to use the Sea Devils filter plus a 2HP filt module. And the filt will act as a high pass to cut the signal as it's coming into the delay loop. And then the Sea Devils will act as a low pass to cut the high signal. So basically you can create this analog modeling delay where it doesn't get really boomy as the loop goes around and around. But it also has that characteristic high end rolling off as the delays repeat. So it's going to, basically the idea is to show you how you can make a hybrid system using the ES8 and a couple of analog modules with Audulus's sequencing abilities and oscillator abilities and make it some really, really unique stuff. So right now we're just hearing a little sequence going. And you got this sequencer right here, sequencing the quantizer a little bit, sequencing some notes coming out of here. And usually when I'm making an oscillator, I'll switch between this kind of mode where I'm focusing on more musical stuff, and then I'll also just like take this off and get one note going all the time. I have to actually take these off. So that's the A. And let's see, I'll just open the filter up a little bit. And I will go over here to this little noise you're hearing there. Turn that down. That is its own separate envelope, and I'll talk about it why in a little bit. But what's really cool about this oscillator is that it does a whole lot with just a little bit. And, you know, let me see. I'm going to turn this. Yeah. Just going to open it up. So you can hear the tone. The filter's all the way open, and you're just hearing the wave now. So I'm going to take this sync off. And what I'll do is I'll concentrate on wave 1. Now, I'm sorry if the constant tone gets a little annoying, but it's important to hear the different sounds going on, to just keep it at one note. Maybe I can do it. I'll just slow it down a lot, or it'll change a little bit. Okay, that'll give it some variation, so it's not the same note every single time. So first we'll, the front panel is still kind of a mess, but basically you have the sine, the triangle, square, and I'm gonna come up with some more wave shaping things for all of these, because there's a whole lot for the saw. And I'll open these up so you can see them. Shapes, saw spread. Okay, so this is all right here. Different controls for the super saw, and a super saw is it's a monophonic oscillator, but what it does is it combines multiple detuned saw waves. And I'm gonna squarize here so you can see them more accurately there. And what this wave control is doing is it's morphing between the sine, triangle, saw, and square. So I'll set it back here. Here's the sine. I'm actually take the wavefold out of there. You'll see a little delay between me moving something here and something on the screen, just because of the loop time of it going around. I have what you're seeing here is on my cell phone. And so that's shaping from a sine to a triangle. And then a square coming up. Whoops, I've got the sync on. And then from the square to the saw. And then it goes all the way back around to this sine again. So what I can do here is do something kind of cool where I go to the module library and I get a LFO. I can actually just get the 0 to 1 saw. I'll replace that here. And make that 0.1. So you can watch it morph over time. And because it's a saw wave and because it goes all the way around again, it'll just go kind of almost like in a circle. Like that. And so this is a really fun way to, get all these sort of different sounds out of whatever you're shaping. So you're not just limited to like mixing a sine and a triangle or a saw together. You can actually morph between them. And so what makes this really cool is I'll hear the wave 1. There's a mixer between wave 1 and wave 2. And now they don't use separate oscillators, they just have different mixers. So if you look inside here, what it's doing is, I'll reattach that saw wave thing so you can see what's happening in here. So that's fading up the square, fading down the square, fading up the saw, fading down the saw, fading up the sine, fading down the sine, fading up the triangle. And it just goes like this, one after another. And this is the spline node. Right? And so that's creating a number between 0 and 1, and then it's multiplying that by the inputs of the different oscillators, mixing it all together and sending it out there. And what's great about this is we can have 2 of them, and so I'll leave this one morphing, and I'll just switch over. This is switching over to wave 2, input B. And I'll select something different here. It's like halfway between the saw and the square. And then, remember this one's still morphing and I can mix back between these two. So this is halfway. Of course, I can make them the same, and then it's just, you know, it's the same as if they're on one or the other, right? But if you set them to something different, you can get a combination of these different waves. And now, so there's, you know, wave 1 and wave 2 that gets mixed into between those two, and then you have a third one you can mix between. So I've got this combined wave here. I'm gonna, so it's got some motion to it. Like that. Should move this more. And then I'll flip over to the third wave. What do I want to do? Yeah, I'll do this. It's a little mixture of the saw and the triangle, or excuse me, the triangle and the square. And then I'll mix back in that other shape. You can see just very subtle, like little things going on there. You couldn't do this on, I mean, I'm not sure there's any type of oscillator that really does this. You'd have to set up a similar kind of system that would involve different mixers coming in your system with the different oscillator wave shapes to do this. So it's feasible, but it's not easy, and it sucks up a bunch of modules that you could be using for something else. And what's so great about this is you get, you know, in Audulus you can, you know, create your own custom oscillator like this. And now I'm gonna turn up the gain on that. This is the signal as it's going out to the oscilloscope. So we have the wave 1, wave 2. And then you can mix between those. And then we have wave 3 over here, and you can mix between wave 1 and 2 and 3. Let's do this. Yeah. And then furthermore, you have these two sub-oscillators, and you can pick between the you can fade them in for one, fade from one to the other. Should I turn this down again? Okay. So you can fade, so it's all sub. We're halfway there. And now this is going to the higher sub oscillator, and this is going to the lower. This is 1 octave down, and that's 2 octaves down. So all told, you've got, oh, and this extra oscillator right here is just being sent also to the data to make the tracking, so that the image here looks really smooth. Use this to track the pitch of the oscillator. So all told, you got 1, 2, 7, so it's 9, 10, 11 oscillators all together in this patch, and because the sine and the triangle are derived from one oscillator. But there's lots of different controls than just the mixing ones that I showed you. So if I go in and we'll go back to just wave 1. Take these. So we just have a sine wave. If I pop out, you can see these are the different sine controls. So I can fold the sine over, and this is a really strongly exponential curve to the knob response, so it goes from 0 to like 500. But I think 0 to like 20 might be the first half of the sweep. And you'll see why. So I can turn this up slowly. Start to add harmonics. At first it becomes more square-like, then it splits down the middle. That. And then you see how it's getting folded over and over and over again. You get more of a tinny sound to it. Until you can get so high that it basically sounds like noise. You get really metallic sounds out of this. Okay. And then I can also overdrive the sine. And that just makes it more square-like. That's this kind of clipping sound. You see those little harmonics being generated there? Yeah. Till it's basically a square wave. That. And you can combine these two with the sine fold. And then, furthermore, you can adjust the phase of the sine wave. So you can see it moving backwards and forwards, like that. You might hear a little pitch wobble, because that is actually what it's doing. It's creating a pitch wobble. So I can attach this LFO that's up here. It's a little aliasing that you're hearing there. So it's basically almost like another noise generator. If you want to limit the Now, what I'll do is I'll go into the triangle. And there's a triangle shape. And this is a combination of wave folding and a kind of, just a math expression where we'll take a look at it in a second, but you can see what it's doing. It's adding harmonics, basically. So it's similar to just the sine wave folding, but it's got these little peaks here that the sine wave doesn't. So there's a different sound to it. We can see what that looks like in the inside. So this triangle shape's going into here. And the triangle shape is fading between the unaltered sound going to A, and then this expression, which is the sine of the wave multiplied by some number, is the wave folding aspect. But then there's this absolute value of triangle, so the triangle is usually going down through, this is 0 right here, it's going down through 0, but as you change the shape, it's being reflected back up, and that creates that little kind of offset to it, where you see the bottom kind of creeps up right there. And so far the square shape is it's pretty much just the standard shape on the oscillator, where it's the pulse width modulation, right? And now we'll get to the saw and talk about its controls. Turn all these down. So So I can tell when it's full saw when there's no little break there. So that's the saw wave. Now I have the number of saws turned down, and I can fade this up. But if I need to have some kind of detune to the saws to see them, so if I add some detune, you'll see them start to separate out. Seem faster. You get that? That's a really recognizable trance tone. That's the 7 saws. But what makes this one unique to other 7 saws is that it's also got in. You see how it's creating these patterns? They're kind of they're always coming back to this same kind of shape. I will adjust this again. Sync the oscillator. So this is like a reset for the oscillator. So it'll start from the beginning. Turn this down slowly. So they separate out. I'll actually also... This will be easier to see if it's just on one note. I'll adjust the time scale here. Whoops. This is a great module. It's called the Mordax Data, and it's a really good oscilloscope. So, resetting the wave there. And because the saws are detuned from each other, they're starting, like, one's going a little slower than the other, some of them are going faster. This is the in-tune saw that's kind of in the middle of them. And you'll see if I turn up the speed of the detune, they'll go through these very predictable patterns. So that was one full cycle there. It's coming around. And this sounds pretty cool, especially if you speed it up. But you might want to add some randomness to it. So that's what this drift control is for. So it adds some little variations to it. If you can just have the saw drift there too. So it's just completely random. But just by adding just a little bit like this, and then adding in the proportional detune, you get this really cool sound between these two. Now, I haven't made this control do anything yet, but I'll come back around to it in a second. So, I'm going to turn the drift down. So I'm resyncing it. And we can change the saw shape just like we can with all of the saw oscillators. And the saw shape basically cuts the saw in half, and it gives you it's a sort of like a 7 detune saw sound to it. Do this. This is one saw, so you can see it happening. Oh, whoops! I think I need to have just a little bit. Yeah. This must not be connected. When I think about it. Yep, that's what it is. There we go, I just need to connect this one in there. So I'll turn this back down again. And you can see the saw shape working right there. And it's doing something similar to what the saws do when they're detuned, like that. To where this is basically an octave higher. It's an octave higher, but it's also lost a little amplitude over time. So it's a little quieter than this wave. But then, what's cool about this, well, actually, it'll be easier to see it happen when if I up the number of saws, and detune them, take the saw shape, and then I have this little gate here that'll stop the saw at a certain point, so I can stop it. So it's locked into there now. It won't keep moving. So now I can show you what it looks like when I have all of these different ones. So you can see it's creating this little moving edge there. And the shape spread will spread the amount of saw shape value that goes to each oscillator over in kind of an exponential curve. And so you see how that looks different? You're going to get more complex harmonic content out of this one. I'll let it go a little bit longer. Okay. Stopped it again. So this is without the shape spread. Almost looks like the waves are moving through each other. It looks very regular. Whereas if I have the shape spread turned up, there's a little more. You see how there's some of them have longer edges to them. Like that. Okay. And then one of the most exciting features about this is this square eyes function, and it turns the super saw into a super square wave. So that's saw and square. So you get the super saw sound, but out of these square waves. It's subtle, but it really does make a big difference. Like, the kind of harmonic structure do you have there? I'll turn the filter down again. Turn the speed up on the filter. Let's do this. This is the filter envelope. Okay, so I'm closing the filter. It's like different flavors, and again, I kind of glossed over this, but this is a cool way to just the stop gate. It only stops the proportional detune. It still lets the saw drift come in, so I could turn that over. When you turn this all the way down, it resets the wave. So to unstop this, right, and. So I'll go over the way this stuff works in a second, but I want to show you some cool tricks about the sync. So I'm going to have it sync every... I'm going to turn this down. So that's resetting the wave every so many beats. And then I can get one that's going faster that turns the... See how it's pausing? So now, doing this where you can sync them and stop them, you can kind of reset the wave. You can also morph between these two different sounds. So it either holds it or you can have a little drift. Now when you have this saw shape turned up, it basically, and if you modulate this especially, you can basically get a 14 saw sound because it's multiplied by 2. And then if you add that on top, the fact that you can take these sub-oscillators and you can balance between both of them, and you can set the shape like this, you can get what's basically an 18 saw sound. If you include that these are, you know, down an octave. Okay, I'm gonna let this play. Actually, turn this. Turn that down again. And I'll show you how this all works inside. So this is the whole supersaw oscillator, and each one of these is a little function that's added onto it. So at first, we can go over how the proportional detune works. So we have this expression here. This is the main undetuned oscillator. So this is where the pitch comes in. I'll turn this down a little bit. Oops. This is where the pitch comes in. It goes ineffective and turns into a Hertz value that goes to this oscillator. And now these ones have multiple variables, but basically we have the O, the octave, plus the detune divided by 48, and don't pay attention to the stop or the drift at the moment, but just say like O plus detune divided by 48, O plus detune divided by 24, O plus detune divided by 12. So when when the detune is at 1, you get a whole 1 semitone shift above at this expression, and this is half a semitone and then a quarter of a semitone, and they're spread out proportionally like that. And then to detune them flat, you do the same thing, but it's O minus detune divided by 48, detune divided by 24, divided by 12. Now, that's the proportional detune, and if we add in the drift, what the drift is doing, there's the drift control, and it's got these are just making it a really exponential kind of curve to the knob as it's coming in, and this is limiting the range that the drift will go over. And if we go inside here, what we have here is just a little random generator, and we have a random number that's being created here. It's getting triggered, and when the phasor is greater than pi, the frequency is 1, goes up. When the phasor is greater than pi, this becomes true, and that samples the random number. That sends that out to a low-pass filter, which acts as a slew limiter, adds that kind of, see if we add that there, it would just go up and down. And then this number that's coming out of here is actually fed back into this input with the frequency to frequency modulate this whole kind of randomness that's generating. So it gets a more, rather than a really fixed 1 Hertz random signal every time, it gets this smooth, shifting, moving kind of randomness to it. And each of these has a different starting seed number, so they're all going to be different from each other. But what that does is it takes the drift, so you have the pitch plus the drift value plus the detune divided by 12, and then that creates the pitch that goes to this oscillator. Now the stop value, that's the gate where you can even have it, if it's at 1, then, sorry, let's see, where did I put that stop function? There it is. Okay. So the stop gate comes in and it gets inverted. So if the gate is low, then this turns into 1. So 1 minus, or sorry, the gate is low, then this becomes 1 minus 0. And then this gets outputted to stop everywhere. And then if that's 1, then this detune divided by 12 expression continues pushing the oscillator away because it's still being detuned. But if the gate goes high, gets inverted here, that high gate turns into a 0 when going through this expression, and it will turn into a 0 here. So all you're left with is 0 plus drift, because this detune divided by 12 times 0 just turns into a big fat 0. And then that's how you can get it so that it's you can see where it slows down and speeds up, slows down, speeds up. You see a little, if I turn the drift off, it'll be fixed. That's because you're just left with, when you have the input, you have them detuned, the oscillators spread apart, but if they then stop being detuned and are suddenly in the same pitch together, they will have moved away in phase from each other, but they're suddenly playing the same pitch, so they'll track along with each other, and that's how you get them to stay still like that. And that's, to my knowledge, it's not on any 7-saws oscillator. And really, the way I came up with it was just I was looking at the scope while I was playing with it, and I was like, oh, that'd be cool if you could like stop it at a particular point and get a kind of tone out of it. You make a really complex sound. So, you know, I could get this to stop, and you know, I can wave shape it between these different ones. This sign there. And doing this all together, you can create such a complex sound. So there you have it. That's most of it. You know, well, I've got a little noise generator over here that it's got its own envelope. I'm just gonna make this an attack release envelope, but you can change to different colors from pink to white. And these are just, you know, the signals that are going in and out of the ES8 over here. But you know, it's just a little quick overview. I wanted to give a preview of where it's at. It's going to be a lot more documented on the inside. It's not going to have all of this stuff. This is just like me, you know, having something that I can play along and listen to the oscillator, so I'm not just listening to a constant tone all the time. But it will be, you know, if we take all of this away, like this, take that away. You get down to like about 10%. That'll run on everything basically, and what's cool about that is you can, with your Eurorack, you can plug in, open this up again, if you have a camera connector kit, and mine's not handy at the moment, but there's this little USB input right here. You can take this and go into your camera connector kit and use Audulus on your iPhone, excuse me, or iPad. And then what I would do with this kind of thing is just like, I'd have this little rig with my modules and like set the phone above or like below it, and then I can, you know, twist knobs on it or something, or I just have it all set up in sequence, and then I can focus on, you know, the performance being mostly twiddling the knobs here and opening and closing filters and that kind of thing. Especially for like drone stuff. This I know, sorry, the light isn't all that great. But what you end up with is for all intents and purposes, it's an analog synthesizer. It's got a digital VCO. That's all it is. There are plenty of great synthesizers out there that have a digital oscillator, or at least digitally controlled oscillators, like say the Juno. And you're gonna, if you have a setup like this, you can make basically your own custom analog synthesizer with your own custom modules, and have a really, really unique sound. And what I'm gonna be able to do is I'm gonna make this super saw oscillator thing its own thing. So if you just want to make trance music with it, you can do that. And I will package that up, and then I'll package up this whole oscillator thing. It's kind of wave shaping thing that's going on here. And what's going to happen is everywhere when you open this up, all of this stuff is going to be explained in line. So there'll be a little thing next to here that's pointing to these little random number generators, and there'll be a little, basically what I told you in the video, a little quick overview of what they do and how they work. And there'll even be inside of this one a little step-by-step that'll show you what's going on each node to each node. So you'll be able to understand everything just by reading and looking at it. But basically, it's got a bunch of knobs on it, but it's one knob per function. It's not, well, once you get used to what each knob does, it's really simple when it really comes down to it, because you basically have, you have the sine wave here, triangle wave, saw wave, or triangle wave, square wave, saw wave, and then the mixing kind of aspect here, picking the morphing between these wave shapes, then morphing between the morphed wave shapes, then adding in the sub-oscillator and the noise. And then that's the whole thing right there. And then basically in your modular you have the filter and the VCA that's doing the envelope stuff. So it's a hybrid system, and I'd love it if someday maybe Audulus will be able to be ported to its own kind of module where it can be loaded onto something like Raspberry Pi or some other kind of small computer that would fit in a module, and then you could do away. You don't need the phone at all, and you just have everything with little knobs on the module itself. So that'd be pretty cool. And yeah, so I don't know. I hope you guys had. It doesn't. I mean, maybe someone's watching. I don't see anyone in the live chat, but it'll be up on YouTube for other people. This is Knobcon starts on the 8th, and it's gonna be in Chicago. It's really fun. You really should stop by if you can. It's like Comic-Con for synthesizer nerds, and it's just it's my favorite convention of the year. It's just so many good people, and we just have a great time. We're all in the same hotel together, and have fun parties at night. Tom Oberheim is the keynote speaker this year, and that should be really great. So he'll be walking around. Hopefully get to say hi. If you really enjoyed this tutorial, and you love Audulus, one of the best things you can do is to rate and review us in the app and Mac stores. Those 5-star reviews really help. They basically push our app up in the listings, and then that means more people buy it, which means we make more money, which means we can spend more money on making Audulus better by hiring contractor developers who can add this or that feature that you want. So the easiest, most simple way to help us out, to help you make Audulus the way you want it, is to give us those 5-star ratings. And of course, remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Audulus, posting stuff on the daily. So thank you very much. Enjoy your Fridays. It's raining here in Asheville. Hopefully it'll stop, and I'll take a little walk at night and probably just work on this a little more. So talk to you later. Bye, guys.